I found out my little sister was actually my daughter when a bored-looking nurse in the ear slid a clipboard toward me, pointed at the signature line and said, "Mom, I need you to sign here so we can sedate her." And I laughed because my mother was literally sitting right next to me digging for her insurance card. And then the nurse frowned, tapped the chart again and said, "No, I mean you, Amanda, you're the listed mother." And in that moment, I swear the buzzing fluorescent lights got louder and the whole world tilted sideways because the only two explanations my brain could come up with were, someone made a clerical error, or my mother has been lying to me, to my sister, and to the state for almost 2 decades. We were there because my sister, Hannah, had fainted in the middle of marching band practice on a 100-degree August day. The school had called my mom first because that's what's on the emergency forms, but I live 10 minutes from the high school and mom lives 45 minutes out, so mom called me and said, "Mandy, go get your sister, they say she's pale as a ghost." And of course I went because I'm the one who buys Hannah's cleats and runs forgotten projects to school and knows which flavor of sports drink she'll actually keep down. By the time mom got there, they'd already loaded Hannah into a room within 4 drip and several concerned people poking her. Mom and I were both anxious but in very different ways. She kept muttering about how Hannah never would have fainted if she drank more water and stopped eating that processed garbage. And I kept glancing at the heart monitor thinking, please don't let there be something wrong. She's all gangly limbs and sarcasm. She's not ready for anything serious. When the nurse came back with the clipboard, Mom automatically reached because that's who my mother is. The one who always takes control, always signs the forms, always tells the story. The nurse shook her head slightly, and that's when she said it. "You're the mother on file, Amanda," she said, pointing to the tiny printed info under patient's parent/guardian. There it was on the sticker, Mother, Amanda Reed. Guardian, Carol Reed. I stared at the label, and for a second my brain tried to convince me it was just because I brought her to most of her appointments like some default setting. "That's not right," I said a little too loudly. "I'm her sister. She lives with my parents. Carol is her mom." The nurse frowned and scrolled through the chart on her tablet. "Her birth certificate lists you as the mother," she said. "Initial paperwork 18 years ago, updated at the pediatrician when she was 4. I'm gonna need you to sign, or we have to track down a court order saying someone else has legal custody." My mother's hand clamped down on my wrist so hard it left marks. "We'll sort that out later," she said in the sugary sweet voice she uses on strangers when she's angry. "Just do what you have to do for my granddaughter." The nurse hesitated, then slid the clipboard even closer to me. "We really do need your consent," she said. "She's a minor. We'd like to give her something for the nausea, maybe run some tests, and we can't if—" I picked up the pen. My hand shook so badly the first letters of my name blurred. I signed anyway because whatever weird bureaucratic nightmare this was, the kid on the bed came first. Hannah, my sister. My baby, the one I'd bathed and rocked and helped with homework and driven to youth group and whispered with about boys she liked and girls she thought were pretty. My mother squeezed my wrist again. "Not here," she hissed under her breath like she'd already read my thoughts. "We are not doing this here." The tests turned out mostly fine. Mild anemia, dehydration, some scary numbers that the doctor said we should follow up on, but nothing life-threatening. They gave Hannah fluids, anti-nausea meds, instructions to rest and see her regular doctor. She dozed in and out, fuzzy and embarrassed, trying to crack jokes about dramatic swooning, while Mom fussed with her hair. I sat in the plastic chair in the corner and stared at that sticker on her chart like it might rearrange itself if I glared hard enough. When they finally discharged her, Mom insisted on taking her home. "You have work in the morning," she said. "I'll stay with her tonight. You can come by tomorrow after your shift." I wanted to argue, but I also wanted answers, and trying to have that conversation in the car with a half-conscious teenager in the back seat seemed like a bad plan. So I watched them drive away, Hannah waving weakly from the passenger seat, my mother's profile sharp and determined behind the wheel, the shape of her mouth familiar in ways that suddenly felt sinister. Then I got in my own car and drove not home, but to the grocery store parking lot around the corner, where I sat with my forehead on the steering wheel and tried to breathe. For context, I'm 35. I work as a manager at a mid-range clothing store in the kind of strip mall where you can get your nails done, pick up a prescription, and order a birthday cake without moving your car more than 50 feet. It's not glamorous, but it's steady and I'm good at it. I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment with my boyfriend, Ben, and a cat named Murphy. My parents, Carol and Dennis, live in the same 3-bedroom ranch house I grew up in on the edge of our Midwest town. My little sister Hannah is 17, a senior in high school, and the light of my life. She was born when I was 18. I remember the day my parents sat me down at the kitchen table to tell me Mom was pregnant again. I was a senior then, too, stressed about college applications, working part-time at the diner, trying to keep my grades up. Mom was 42, and the pregnancy was a surprise bordering on shock, but she smiled through it and said, "The Lord works in mysterious ways." Dad joked about starting over when we're old enough to be grandparents. I remember being a little annoyed, honestly, that they'd chosen now when we were already stretched thin, but I also remember feeling the first flutter of protectiveness. A baby, a sibling I'd be old enough to really help with. Looking back, that conversation is blurry around the edges, like a movie recorded over too many times. There are pieces that don't quite line up. How pale Mom looked, how she'd been wearing baggy sweaters for months, how she got oddly defensive when I asked how far along she was. "It doesn't matter," she'd snapped, then softened. "It's a blessing, not a math problem." Hannah was born in February, on a sleeting gray morning. I remember because they pulled me out of school, "Just in case we need you," and I spent 12 hours in a hospital waiting room listening to my grandmother mutter about women having babies past their time and flipping through outdated magazines. When they finally let me in to see Mom, she was sweaty and exhausted, a tiny pink bundle tucked in her arms. Dad beamed and said, "Meet your little sister, Hannah Grace," and I fell in love instantly. I didn't question the fact that Mom looked less like someone who'd just given birth than I'd expected, or the way the nurse made a weird face when Mom told her not to worry about showing me how to breastfeed because she was too old for all that and would just use formula, or the way my abdomen still twinged when I leaned over the bed rail, soreness I blamed on period cramps that had been mysteriously absent for months. I was 18. I trusted what I was told. After that, life shifted. I went to a local community college instead of the state school 2 hours away I'd wanted. "It just makes more sense," Mom had said when the financial aid letters came. "Who's going to help with the baby if you're off playing sorority girl? You can transfer later." I never did. Someone always needed to be picked up from daycare, or I had to cover a shift at the diner, or Dad's hours got cut and there wasn't money for gas. I became the de facto third parent. Up at night with Hannah when she had ear infections, watching Barney on repeat, juggling homework with bottles and diapers. Mom's late-in-life baby sucked all the air out of the house, and somewhere in that chaos, my own plans quietly suffocated. Still, I loved her. More than anyone. When she took her first steps, she came toddling toward me. When she cried, she reached for me before she reached for Mom. People at church would smile and say, "You're such a little mama," and my mother would beam like that was a compliment for her. As Hannah got older, there were moments that felt off, but I'd been marinating in my mother's version of reality for so long, I learned to smooth them over. Like how Mom never wanted Hannah to see pictures of herself pregnant. "I was huge," she'd say, laughing, waving off the question. "You don't need to see that." Or how our pastor's wife, Mrs. Turner, once slipped and said, "It's nice that you got to keep her in the family," and Mom shot her a look so sharp she practically bled. Or the time Hannah's friend asked how old Mom had been when she had her, and Hannah turned to my mother and said, "You were 42, right?" And Mom paused half a beat too long before nodding. I didn't think about birth certificates or hospital forms. Why would I? The story I'd been given was simple. My parents had a surprise baby later in life, my job was to help, and any resentment I felt about my derailed plans was selfishness I needed to pray about. I moved out when I was 23, into an apartment with a roommate from work. Mom cried and said, "I don't know what we'll do without you, but I suppose you have to live your own life sometime," in a tone that made it clear she thought I was abandoning them. Hannah, then 5, clung to my leg and sobbed. I promised I'd visit all the time. I did. Some weeks I was at their house more nights than my own. When Dad had a heart scare at 53, I was the one who drove him to every follow-up appointment. When Hannah needed a science fair project, I was the one who stayed up until midnight building a model volcano. When Mom got shingles, I took time off work to watch Hannah so Mom could nap. I joked that I should start charging rent again. Mom would laugh and say, "You know you'll always have a room here if you need it." Like recompense could be paid in nostalgia instead of cash. All of that is to say, if you'd asked me a year ago how close I was to my little sister, I'd have said without hesitation that she's the closest thing I'll ever have to a child. I just didn't realize how literal that was. Sitting in that grocery store parking lot after the ER, I called Ben. "Hey," he said. "How's Hannah?" "She's okay," I said. "Or the doctor says she will be." But something weird happened. I told him about the signature, the chart, my mom's reaction. There was a long pause. Ben is not a drama guy. He's steady, quiet, the kind of person who reads the instructions all the way through before assembling furniture. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful. "Is it possible it's just a paperwork mistake?" he asked. "Like, they put your name in the wrong field when you started signing her in for things years ago?" "Maybe," I said. "Except I don't remember ever signing anything as her mom." And the nurse said, "Birth certificate. That's not a field you just fat finger." "Then I think," he said gently, "you need to talk to your mother. When you're both calm." I laughed, a short, ugly sound. "My mother doesn't do calm," I said. "She does control." "Then you have to decide," he said. "Do you want to live with whatever this is without knowing? Or do you want to rip the bandage off?" I went home, paced the living room for an hour, then drove to my parents' house. Mom was in the kitchen, spooning soup into bowls with more force than necessary. Hannah was on the couch under a blanket, half watching some competition show, pale but better. She perked up when she saw me. "Hey, Mandy," she said. "I didn't die. You still owe me ice cream for missing band pictures." "Deal," I said, kissing her forehead. "How's your head?" "Heavy," she said. "Mom won't let me check my phone. Apparently fainting makes you grounded." "Screens will just give you a headache," Mom snapped, then softened. "You can have ice cream tomorrow if you drink all your water." I waited until Hannah shuffled down the hall to the bathroom before I turned to my mother. "We need to talk," I said. She didn't look at me. "About what?" she said, though her shoulders went rigid. "About why the hospital thinks I'm Hannah's mother," I said. "About why my name is on her records." Mom slammed the pot down a little too hard. Soup sloshed over the edge and hissed on the burner. "Not here," she said, echoing herself from earlier. "Not where she can hear you." "She's 17, I said. "She's going to hear us eventually." "Not tonight," Mom said. "Not when she just fainted. Go wait on the porch." The porch was where all the big talks happened in our family, the ones Mom didn't want Dad weighing in on. Dad was at work. He'd taken on a few evening shifts at the hardware store after retiring from the plant, partly for the discount and partly, I suspect, to avoid being at home with Mom's worry. I sat on the faded wicker chair I'd helped repaint the summer I was 20, back when Hannah was a toddler and Mom refused to let her touch a paintbrush because she'll make a mess. Mom came out a few minutes later, wiping her hands on a dish towel like she could scrub the conversation away. She didn't sit. "It's not what you think," she said. "You don't know what I think," I said. "Because none of this makes sense. Why does her chart say I'm her mother? Why is my name on her birth certificate?" Mom drew in a sharp breath. "You were going to find out eventually," she said. "I just thought it would be after she was out of the house, after things were more settled." "Find out what?" I asked, even though some part of me already knew. My body remembered things my conscious mind had smoothed over. The nausea I blamed on stress. The way my clothes had stopped fitting that year. The months I went without a period and told myself it was because I'd started working nights. The crushing shame I couldn't trace to anything specific. Mom took a breath, squared her shoulders like she was going into battle and said, "Hannah is yours." For a second, all I heard was crickets. "What?" I said slowly. "She's your daughter," Mom said. "By blood. I am her legal guardian. Your father and I adopted her. You know that boy you were seeing senior year? That useless one with the motorcycle?" Her lip curled like it tasted sour. "You got pregnant. You were a child. You were not fit to be a mother. I stepped in so she wouldn't grow up in sin and chaos." I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. "No," I said. "I would remember that." "You do," she said. "You just chose not to. You bled for days, remember? The doctor said it was complicated. You told their counselor you didn't want to think about it. You signed the papers. You begged me to make it go away." Memories slammed into me then, out of order, disjointed. Sitting in a cold exam room in a paper gown, Mom squeezing my hand so hard it hurt. The OB's kind face saying, "We're going to move you to another floor now," like it was my choice. A social worker with tired eyes asking, "Do you understand what adoption means?" While my mother answered for me. Me staring at the ceiling while someone talked about closed records and fresh starts. My brain repeating, "If I don't think about it, it won't be real." "You told me I miscarried," I whispered. Mom's eyes flashed. "You did at first," she said. "The doctor said it was a threatened miscarriage. It stopped, and then it didn't. You were almost 3 months along when we found out the baby was still there. It was a sign, a chance from God to do the right thing. You wanted to pretend none of it happened. You were not going to drag an innocent child into your foolishness." "Why didn't we go to court?" I asked. "Why isn't there a record?" "There is," she said. "It's just not in the way you think. We didn't do a regular adoption. The lawyer said it would be easier to put your name on the certificate as the mother and mine as the guardian, then petition to change guardianship when you were ready. We just never changed it. It didn't seem necessary." "So you lied," I said. "To me, to Dad, to the hospital, to everyone." "I did what I had to do," she snapped. "You were sleeping around with that trash when you were barely 17. Did you think I was going to let you drop out of school and drag a child through that? Your father would have thrown you out if he'd known whose baby it was. I saved you both. Does Dad know?" I asked. "Of course he knows," she said. "We told him when I got pregnant." "You think he's stupid?" "He agreed this was the best way. He saw how you were. You couldn't even remember to take the trash out, and you wanted to be someone's mother." I thought about Dad holding Hannah when she was tiny, calling her my little surprise. I thought about him sitting at the kitchen table late at night, rubbing his temples, saying, "We'll figure it out, Care. We always do." Had he known he was raising his granddaughter, not his daughter? Had he known I was more than just little mama big sister? I felt sick. "And Hannah?" I asked. "Does she know?" "No," Mom said quickly. "And she doesn't need to. She's happy. She has a good life. She thinks you're the fun sister. Why would you want to ruin that?" "Because it's the truth," I said. "Because she deserves to know who she is." "She knows who she is," Mom said. "She's our daughter. Our granddaughter. Your sister. That's what she's always been. Biology doesn't matter. What matters is who raised her." "So if biology doesn't matter," I said, "why didn't you just get real legal custody and put your name as her mother? Why is my name on the paperwork?" "Because you insisted," she said. "You said you wanted some connection. The counselor said it might help you accept it if you knew you were still on paper her mother. You cried and cried. Don't you dare rewrite this like I stole something from you." "You did," I said softly. "You stole my choice. You stole my memory. You rewrote the story and then punished me every time I failed to play my part." "I gave you your life back," she said. "You went to college. You had boyfriends. You moved out. You didn't have to drag a baby everywhere. You're welcome. I went to community college down the street because you told me I couldn't go away," I said. "I dropped out a year early because someone always needed me at home with the baby. I thought I was helping my parents with their late-in-life child. All along she was mine. Words, 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 she said, waving a hand. You always were dramatic. The fact is, she's almost grown. You're better as her sister. She listens to you because you're not the authority. If you tell her this now, you'll destroy her. She'll hate you. She'll hate me. You'll blow up her whole sense of self right before she launches into the world. Do you really want that on your conscience? That was my mother's superpower. Taking any anger you had and alchemizing it into guilt. I left that night without answers, just that one big truth sitting in my chest like a stone. In the days that followed, everything felt surreal. I watched Hannah laugh at TikToks, do her calculus homework at my kitchen table, practice her clarinet, send 1,000 texts, and all I could see was the tiny wrinkled newborn I'd held that first night. The way she'd wrapped her fist around my finger. The way the nurse had said, "She really calms down when you're holding her." And Mom had smiled like that meant we were a good team. I started to notice things I'd ignored. How Hannah's eyes were the same shade of hazel as mine, not Mom's blue or Dad's brown. How her smile tilted more like mine. How her nose had the same bump on the bridge. I pulled out old photos. There I was 18, puffy-faced and exhausted, at my mom's baby shower, wearing an oversized hoodie even though it was June, holding my stomach like I was trying to hide it. There I was in a hospital gown in one picture, my hair plastered to my forehead, Mom standing next to the bed looking triumphant. "We only have one picture of me in the hospital," she'd always said. "You know how your father hates cameras." But why had I been in a gown? What patient gets in the bed with the new mother like that? The more I looked, the more the seams showed. Little lies smoothed over edges, stories that had never quite sat right. Ben suggested therapy. "You've been gaslit for years," he said gently, using the word my mother would have called psychobabble nonsense. "You need someone who isn't in it to help you sort this out." The therapist, a calm woman named Dr. Patel, didn't seem shocked by any of it. This kind of intrafamilial adoption, especially with a teenage pregnancy and a controlling parent, is more common than you'd think, she said. "What's uncommon is you not remembering more of the pregnancy." "I remember hating my body," I said. "I remember being tired all the time. I remember Mom telling me I was letting myself go, and that no boy would want a girl who couldn't stop eating chips. I remember not having a period for months and her saying, 'It's stress, it happens.' I remember nausea in the mornings and headaches and having to loosen my belt. I remember asking if we could go to the doctor and her saying, 'We can't afford it unless you're dying.' And then I remember the OB visit and the hallway and blank and then the hospital room after. Your brain may have done you a favor by pushing the trauma away," Dr. Patel said, "but your body knew. And your mother took advantage of your age and your trust." "What do I do?" I asked. "Do I tell Hannah? Do I blow up her life the way mine just blew up?" "That depends," she said, "on your values, on your relationship with her, on whether you think she'd rather live with a painful truth or a comfortable lie. There's no version of this that doesn't hurt." I tried to get more information from Mom. She shut down every time. "We are not dissecting the past," she said. "We made a plan, we stuck to it, and look how well she turned out. You're the only one making a problem where there isn't one." I asked Dad, cornering him one afternoon when I'd taken him to his cardiologist. He stared out the window of the car for a long minute, then said, "You were a kid. I was scared. Your mom said this was the only way to keep you both. I didn't want to lose my daughter or my grandchild. I signed what the lawyer put in front of me. I've regretted pieces of it ever since. Why didn't you ever tell me?" I asked. "After I turned 18. After I moved out. Why didn't you ever say, 'By the way, that was your baby'?" He shrugged, shoulders drooping. "Your mother made it very clear that if I ever went against her on this, she'd take her and disappear," he said. "I'm not proud of that. But I was a coward. Your mom, she's a force of nature. You know that. So you chose her over me," I said. "Over the truth." I chose the path that kept the most people in my life, he said quietly. Even if it meant you didn't know everything. I thought maybe it was kinder to let you live your life without that weight. It wasn't kinder, I said. It was easier. For you. Dad didn't argue. He just reached over, patted my knee awkwardly and said, I'm sorry, kiddo, in a voice that told me he knew that was nowhere near enough. The decision about telling Hannah came faster than I expected. About 6 weeks after the ER incident, she needed a physical for sports. Mom called me in a panic from the doctor's office. They say she needs her full family medical history, she said. They're asking about your side. I don't know what you've got from his family. His, meaning the boy on the motorcycle, my high school boyfriend, the one Mom had always referred to as that trash, as if his name itself were a curse. I hadn't thought about him in years. I didn't even know for sure if he knew about the pregnancy. Mom had handled all of that, or said she had. Put her on the phone, I said. Mom sputtered. This is not the time, she hissed. I'm not doing this in the waiting room. Then take her out to the car, I said. We're not lying to her about her health. Hannah's voice came on the line, slightly tinny. Hey, she said. Mom almost bit the nurse's head off. That tracks, I said. Listen, when you get done there, can you come over? I need to talk to you. Like really talk. There was a pause. Is this about the way she freaked out at the hospital? Hannah asked. Because I'm not stupid, Mandy. I saw the chart. I saw your name. My heart stuttered. We'll talk when you get here, I said. Okay. Okay, she said slowly. But if this is some soap opera you were adopted thing, I swear to God. She trailed off, half joking. I almost threw up. When she got to my apartment later, she was in leggings and an oversized hoodie with the school logo, her hair in a messy bun, the picture of teenage nonchalance except for the tightness around her eyes. Ben made himself scarce in the bedroom, understanding that this was not a conversation that needed an audience. Hannah flopped on the couch, pulled her knees up and said, All right, lay it on me. Are we secretly royalty or serial killers? Neither, I said. I wish. It's about you. And me. And Mom. She rolled her eyes. Everything is about Mom, she said. She cried in the car on the way here. Said you were being dramatic. I told her I could handle whatever it is. I'm not 5. You're not, I said. That's the point. I took a deep breath. You know I love you, right? Obviously, she said, but softer. You're the only one who remembers my coffee order. I'm serious, I said. I need you to know that nothing I'm about to say changes that. It just explains some things. Her sarcasm slipped a little. Okay, she said. You're freaking me out a little, but okay. The nurse was right, I said. On the chart. About the mother line. My name is on your birth certificate because I had you. When I was 17. Silence. For a moment, nothing moved. Hannah blinked once. Twice. Then she laughed, a short, disbelieving bark. Shut up, she said. No, you didn't. That's insane. Mom was pregnant. I've seen pictures. You've seen pictures of me pregnant, I said. In big hoodies hiding it, but it was there. Mom. She told everyone she was having you late in life. She told me I'd miscarried. Then she told me I was too young to be a mother, and that the best thing for everyone was if she raised you as hers. She did some creative paperwork. Dad went along with it. I blocked a lot of it out. But the records are clear. You're my kid, biologically. Hannah stared at me like I just started speaking another language. No, she said again, but with less force. That doesn't make sense. I look like Mom. You look like both of us, I said gently. You have her chin. You have my eyes. You have Grandpa's nose. Genetics don't care what story we tell. Her face went through a kaleidoscope of expressions. Confusion, anger, something like hope that she immediately tried to squash. Why are you telling me this now? She demanded. Why didn't you tell me when I was, 10 or 12 or literally any other time? Because I only found out a few weeks ago. I said. I mean, some part of me probably always knew, but consciously? Mom just told me. At the hospital, when the nurse needed my signature. She was planning to wait until you were out of the house. I don't agree with that. So she lied, Hannah said slowly. For 17 years. And you went along with it. I didn't know, I said. I was a kid. I trusted her. And then by the time I might have started putting pieces together, the lie was so big I didn't know where to start. That's not an excuse. I'm not proud of that. But I'm trying to do the right thing now. What's the right thing? She asked. Dropping this bomb on me right before senior year? Right before college apps. Her hands were shaking. She shoved them under her thighs. Do you have any idea how insane this is? I don't even know what to call you. My eyes stung. You can call me whatever you want, I said. I'm not asking you to switch to mom overnight. Or ever if you don't want to. Our relationship is what matters, not the label. But I couldn't keep being part of the lie. Not when your medical records, your legal records are involved. Not when doctors are asking questions and we're pretending. So grandma's been my mom this whole time, she said. And my mom's been my what, sister mom? And grandpa knew? Did Nana know? Does Pastor Turner know? Does literally everyone in this town know but me? Dad knows, I said. Grandma Nana might have suspected from some things she said, but Mom shut it down. Pastor Turner at least knew something from what he said years ago. But no, not everyone. Most people just accepted the story. Hannah laughed again, but there were tears in her eyes. This is so on brand, she said. For this family. Everyone in our church gossiping about other people's sins while we're over here doing identity fraud. You're allowed to be mad, I said. At me. At Mom. At Dad. At all of it. Oh, I am, she said. Trust me. I'm furious. And I don't even know where to put it. Like, part of me wants to scream at you for not telling me sooner. And part of me wants to hug you because at least you told me at all. And part of me wants to go over there and throw all of Mom's Bible study notebooks in the trash. That last one is tempting, I said. Ben would help. She actually smiled at that, then wiped her face roughly. Is he my stepdad now? She asked, half joking. No, I said quickly. He's still just Ben. Adult labels are weird enough. Let's not add a sitcom dynamic. She nodded. Do you know who my father is? She asked. Biologically, I mean. Yeah, I said. I told her his name, bracing for impact. She snorted. Seriously, she said. That guy? Mom calls him the reason you almost ruined your life. She calls you that too when she's mad, I said. Don't take her phrasing personally. Does he know about me? She asked. I don't know, I said. Mom claims she told him and he wanted nothing to do with it, but given her track record, that might be a lie. I haven't talked to him since I was 18. I could probably track him down if you wanted. She shook her head quickly. One nightmare at a time, she said. Okay, so, what changes? That's up to you, I said. Legally, nothing has to change right now. Mom is still your guardian on school paperwork. You're almost 18. Soon you'll be your own legal adult. We can update whatever you want then. Emotionally, I don't know. We talk. We process. We figure it out together. I am here for whatever you need. Questions, anger, silence. Do you wish you'd kept it a secret? She asked suddenly. Like, if the nurse hadn't said anything, would you rather not know? No, I said. Even though it hurts like hell, I'd rather know. I spent 17 years feeling like I was half a mother with no name for it. At least now the pieces make sense. Does it make sense to you? She thought about it, then nodded slowly. Yeah, she said. It explains why you do all the stuff Mom doesn't. Why you showed up at every game. Why you remember my friends' names. Why I always felt closer to you. I thought it was just big sister stuff. Turns out it's second parent stuff. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder back then, I said. I wish I'd had the courage to say no, to keep you as mine on paper too. not just in my heart. You were a kid, she said. Mom's scary now. I can't imagine what she was like when you lived there full time. Louder, I said. More righteous. Yikes, she said. Okay, I need like a week to process this. Minimum. I'll probably go through all 5 stages of grief and then back again. But I'm glad you told me. I think. She wiped her eyes again. Can I ask you something weird? Anything, I said. Are you mad at me? She asked. That broke me. Mad at you. I repeated. For existing? No, for. I don't know, she said. For being the reason your life got derailed. For being the baby you didn't get to keep. I reached for her hand. You were never the reason my life got derailed, I said. Mom's choices did that. The church's shame did that. Silence did that. You were the reason I learned I could love someone more than myself. If anything, you saved me. She sniffed. Cheesy, she said. True, I said. Mom did not take the news well when Hannah confronted her, which of course she did the very next day because subtlety has never been a Reed family trait. She called me screaming. How dare you go behind my back, she said. How dare you twist everything, make me out to be the villain. She's hysterical. She says I stole her life. She says you're her real mother. I told her the truth, I said. You're the one who twisted things. You ungrateful girl, she snapped, defaulting to my childhood nickname. Do you have any idea what I did for you? I took on another baby when I was in my 40s. I gave up my job. I lived through judgment from every busybody in that church. I carried the weight of your sin so you could go swan off and play house in your apartment, and now you repay me by poisoning my granddaughter against me. I didn't poison her, I said. You poured the poison years ago when you buried the truth. I just pulled the cork. You always did have a way with words, she said bitterly. Well, congratulations. She's moving in with you. What? I said. She packed a bag, Mom said. She says she needs space. She says she's almost 18 and can choose where she lives. If she thinks life with you is going to be easier, let her see how fast your boyfriend gets sick of a moody teenager and a cat. I already told her she could stay with us if she needed to, I said. This isn't about punishing you. It's about her feeling safe. Safe, Mom repeated. In the house of a fornicating sinner. You're going to drag her straight to hell. She's already been through hell, I said. She's just now realizing it. Mom hung up on me. Hannah showed up 10 minutes later with a duffel bag and swollen eyes. I can go back if it's too much, she said immediately. I just needed to not be there right now. You're not going back tonight, I said. Or any night you don't want to. This is your home too. The next year was rough. Hannah moved in officially after she turned 18. We updated paperwork at her school, sliding my mother's name down a notch and mine up. She started introducing me to new people as my mom Amanda, and then laughing at their confused faces when they saw we were only 18 years apart. We found a therapist for her, someone who specialized in adoption and identity issues. Mom waged a campaign in the family group chat, painting herself as the righteous martyr whose wayward eldest had stolen her grandchild and filled her head with lies. Some relatives bought it. Others quietly reached out to me and said, "We always wondered." Dad shuttled between houses trying to keep the peace, making things mostly worse by refusing to pick a side. The biggest twist came 6 months later, when my grandmother died and her lawyer contacted me about a trust. "Your grandmother set up a small education fund 18 years ago for the child of Amanda Reed," he said. "It's not huge, but with interest it's about $12,000 now. It's supposed to go to that child when they turn 18. I'm assuming that's Hannah." My mouth went dry. Why wasn't this mentioned before? I asked. "We sent statements to the address on file," he said. "To your parents' house. Your mother was listed as the custodian." My stomach dropped. "So you've been sending updates," I said slowly. "And my mother has known about this money for 18 years. "Correct," he said. We've had no disbursements. The funds are intact. That last sentence was a shock. Given everything else, I'd half expected the account to be empty. Instead, it was like a time capsule. A version of my grandmother reaching across years to help the great-grandchild my mother had tried to pretend didn't exist. Hannah used the trust to cover her first year of college at the state school I'd once wanted to attend. She cried when we signed the papers. I always thought Nana thought of me as just the youngest, she said. I had no idea she knew. She knew, I said. She might not have fought Mom openly, but she knew. Mom, when she found out, lost her mind. That money was for the family, she raged over the phone. We could have used that for the roof, for your father's medical bills. Your grandmother had no right to go behind my back like that. It was for my child, I said. Nana wrote it that way. The lawyer can show you the paperwork. Of course you think you know better than me, she snapped. You always did. Enjoy your little victory. When Hannah drops out or gets pregnant herself, don't come crying to me. Hannah did not drop out. She thrived. College gave her distance and perspective and a peer group who didn't see her as the baby of the Reed family but as a whole person. She still calls me Mandy half the time and Mom the other half, depending on the context. We're figuring it out. It's messy and beautiful and nothing like the sanitized nuclear family my mother tried to paste over us. As for my relationship with my mother, it exists in a strange, brittle half-light. We text on holidays. We see each other at obligatory events. She still refuses to admit she did anything wrong. In her mind, she saved us both. She saved me from teenage motherhood and poverty, saved Hannah from bastard status, saved the family from gossip. Everything else, my derailed education, Hannah's identity crisis, Dad's cowardice, the pile of lies, are footnotes she'd rather skip. Sometimes I lie awake at night and wonder if I did the right thing. If I hadn't pushed, if I'd let the hospital thing slide, would Hannah be happier? She would have sailed into adulthood believing she was the late-in-life miracle baby of two doting parents, instead of the product of a teenage pregnancy and a web of secrets. She wouldn't be in therapy. She wouldn't have panic attacks every time she fills out a medical history form. She wouldn't be estranged from her grandmother. Then I remember the look on her face when she said, "At least now the pieces make sense." I remember being 17, feeling sick and scared and ashamed, and my mother telling me it was all my fault. I remember the years of feeling like a ghost in my own story. Secrets like that rot things from the inside. They don't stay buried. They just show up in other ways. Anxiety, depression, unexplained anger. At least now we know what we're dealing with. So that's my story, internet strangers. I'm the woman who grew up thinking she had a much younger sister, only to find out in an hour at 35 that she was actually her daughter, born when I was a scared teen under the iron fist of a controlling, religious mother who decided the only acceptable narrative was one where she got to be the hero and I got to forget. My mother lied to doctors, to family, to our church, and to me for 17 years. She even sat in the front row at Hannah's middle school family tree presentations and smiled while my kid drew her as the root instead of the branch. I chose to rip the lie open. I told the truth. Hannah moved in with me. My mother lost control of the story she'd curated for nearly 2 decades. Some days I feel like I saved my daughter's sanity. Other days I feel like I dropped a bomb on a perfectly stable illusion. If you were in my shoes, if you discovered that your little sister was actually your biological child, that your mother had orchestrated a secret intrafamilial adoption and spent years gaslighting you both, and that telling the truth would shatter your daughter's sense of self and your family's reputation but staying silent would mean continuing the lie, would you do what I did and tell her everything, even knowing it would blow up her relationship with the only parents she's ever known? Or would you keep the secret forever? Let her live inside the story your mother built, and swallow your own pain so she could have the comfort of a beautiful lie.